to Abnormal Japan, a podcast based in Tokyo. We share all about our life in Japan while diving into abnormal topics. You can find our episodes on all major platforms as well as Podbean, YouTube, and Spoon Radio. Stay updated by following Abnormal Japan on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Check out the blog site for more topic context. All the links will be in the description. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. You're listening to the Abnormal Japan podcast. My name is Bree, an Afro-Latina American from Houston, Texas. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a content creator and a kick-ass housewife. Here with me is my partner and co-host.
Hey, I always leave a pause, but what's up? I'm Ashish, South Asian American from Denver, Colorado, Houston, Texas, for life, pronouns he, they, and I'm an English teacher and writer.
Nice. So today it is a little rainy outside, so if you hear any rain during this episode, just, utilize it as chill ASMR. Nature sounds and rain.
There's a website for that. It's called rainymood.com.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you're ever listening to like, oh my God, I want to hear... Well, nowadays they have YouTube videos with the mix already put in, but back in the day, we had to go to rainymood.com and it was just rain
and
ASMR.
Then before us, people had to get CDs.
Oh my God.
Those relaxation CDs. Okay.
That's wild.
So in today's episode, in honor of Pride and Marsha P. Johnson's contribution to the LGBT history, we're going to talk about gender and sexuality.
Ooh.
Yeah. We're recording this in the month of Pride, and if you're on any aspect of the queer spectrum and its intersections, or if you're just curious to learn more about the LGBTQIA plus community, I hope you get something from this discussion, whether that's understanding or feeling seen. Throughout this episode, we're going to share and break down several definitions. If you're unsure of some of the terms we use, check out the links in the show notes for resources.
All right.
And today's episode is going to be mainly run by Ashish today.
Hey, I'm over here. I'm so nervous.
Oh, it's okay.
No, I'm nervous because normally I don't have to do anything. So this time I had to do stuff and research and write show notes. So
yeah,
mad respect, Brie. You always come with the information and the organization. So yeah.
Thank you.
I'm nervous, so if you hear it in my voice, excuse me. So do I just start?
Yeah, let's do this. Right, what do you want to start with?
Okay, so first I want to talk about some definitions, right?
Okay.
So we're going to break this up into easy to digest bits. 3 things. So we're going to talk about first, gender, sex assigned at birth, and sexuality, what those are, the differences, how they interlap, all that. So that's broadly speaking kind of what we're going to be focusing on.
Yeah, that's important too, because there are differences and a lot of people kind of just put them all in the same box, right? And then just run with it. And we're like, no, there's different identities and different definitions.
And the thing is, there's more information now than there was before. And I think not enough people are aware of the updates that have come along since maybe 7th grade biology, whenever they took it too. True. So, and I also want to shout out all the sex educators that we follow, all the Black women, all the brown women, everybody doing the work to bring awareness to these issues as well.
We'll list people's handles in the show notes that we are inspired by and who help educate us in these issues. So you can
definitely follow them all. They're all great people. Now, so first definition we're going to talk about, right? Definition numero uno. So we're going to talk about binary. A lot of human experience is categorized by binary. So as our first definition, Merriam-Webster has a couple of solid definitions, but we're going to focus on 2 of them: the noun and the adjective, division and classification, and then opposition to create structural models. So basically, when we talk about binary, it's mostly when it comes down to 2 opposing things. And that's how a lot of people see the world. A lot of people see the world as black and white, this or that, 1 or 0. So that's kind of why we bring this up a lot, because people see sex markers as a binary. People see gender as a binary. People see sexuality as a binary. So a lot more of these things are less fixed than we assume them to be, or at least that we have been taught to when we were in the education programs that we were in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now, binary. Any questions?
No, honestly, what comes to me when I hear binary, especially in the climate today, it's usually referring to like male, female, homosexual, heterosexual,
Mm-hmm,
just black and white divisions.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And what we kind of want to break down today is all the things in between because they are there, they've always been there. We just have better language to navigate those terms.
Right, and that's why I wanted that to be the first definition. You know what I'm saying? Because like you were saying, a lot of people will see it as like separate, opposing categories,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a lot more give, I guess. You know what
That's
I'm saying?
true. And some people don't even think about the binary as the binary because it's just what is normalized
Right.
because the world is very heteronormative.
So yeah, that's kind of the main issue is that people will see things as just two things. There's a lot more
Mm-hmm.
to it, but yeah, it's more than that. So binary, what we're gonna talk about is binary and sex binary, like you were saying, sexuality and gender. So
Mm-hmm.
next thing we're gonna talk about, the next definition, right?
Okay.
Assigned sex. So this is
Mm.
your sex assigned at birth. Now this, everyone gets this all twisted. When people hear, oh, sex, like mark your sex, people will say, oh, MF or yes, like, oh, I wouldn't have sex. It's a fucking stupid joke.
Yeah, people troll.
Anyway, that joke has always been so annoying to me. I'm like, if you make that joke, you're fucking lame. Anyway,
Yeah, I get you.
okay, let's see. Right. So assigned sex. This is your sex assigned at birth. This is what people will have on their birth certificate. So we're talking about genitalia and classifications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, most people conflate sex, or I'm sorry, assigned sex, the classification that you're given at birth. So male, female, intersex, or other based on, anatomy, hormones, and chromosomes, doctor's recommendation, or parent's decision. All those things, people will conflate the assigned sex at birth with gender.
Yeah, this is true. Because growing up, that's how I saw it, and that's the only way people talked about gender and sex. And honestly, because the word sex in itself is taboo, so people wouldn't really say, oh, your sex is female. They would just say, oh, your gender is female. And so you grew up conflating those two.
Right. And this is a very common thing. It's not like, it's not super revolutionary to be like, oh, well, they're the same. Like you have to be able to address things with nuance. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of people will conflate those with, a lot of people will conflate assigned sex at birth. So what's on your birth certificate with gender. So one thing to note is also that chromosomes are not solely responsible for genitalia. And there's more and more research and more people coming out, like doing studies
Mm-hmm.
on research groups and statistical groups of how bodies are formed. And also a lot more people are talking about awareness of body and genetic variants. So
Mm.
when people are like ignorant of current research and ongoing research and information that's being published, people just want to talk about sex like it's some neat, like categorized thing, like
Mm-hmm.
it's just this or that, but they don't follow and support sex educators who talk about this. They don't look at how medical systems operate on just making people need their reassurance, I guess, in a way. So
Mm.
like most people will default to their doctor's opinion, or they won't go beyond what they're told.
Like you mentioned with the doctors, people really trust their doctors like as if they are the end all be all.
Right. A lot of doctors, uh, like a medical degree only gets you so far. Like you also have to do research into things. Like you have to keep up if you're part of the medical community. I find that a lot of doctors may or may not. So it's like you might want to get a second or third opinion when it comes to these
True.
things.
There's a lot of outdated research and studies done on gender and sex
Mm-hmm.
that there's more being done now and there's more educators on it, but people aren't keeping up with that because that is not being taught in schools. The old systems are still being taught. So
Right.
whenever people leave education systems, they're often confused when they see this quote unquote new information, more so just the new language. So I think people just need to be more open to what has been and then how we're talking about it.
Right. And even when it comes to language, like you were saying, a lot of language is very binary when it comes to pronouns, like with Spanish, English, like all these different languages that exist, in reference to other people. Sometimes it can be very limiting when it comes to like myriad of experiences. So there's also a lot of work being done on the linguistic side of how to be more inclusive to all those things, right?
Yeah.
And also, sex assigned at birth is what's on your birth certificate, but there's a lot of intersex erasure that does happen because when you think about assigned sex as a binary, there are certain requirements that are need to be met to fall into either category. And with intersex people, there's body variance with genetic variance. So one person that actually advocates for these issues is a pigeon. I don't know how to say their last name. I think it's Pagonis. I'm just gonna say Pagonis. I'm sorry if this is wrong, but Pigeon Pagonis. They have a lot of information on their website and YouTube channel if you're interested in reading up more about that. They're very open about their gender experience, their being intersex experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's wild because that's something that I didn't even know about until very recently.
And I learned a lot about them when I saw one of their YouTube channel videos, and they explained how, well, you mentioned the requirements of how the doctor will choose your assigned sex, and it's literally requirements on the genitalia,
Right, like they're sitting
and
here
it's
judging
just
babies.
Yeah, and it's just like centimeters of difference that makes you a certain way. And if you're in between that, there are a lot of non-consensual surgeries done.
Right, and I know a lot of people feel one way or another about circumcision for like male bodies. So like, yeah, I don't know. Like if people feel some kind of way about circumcision, like the whole intersex erasure is a really big deal, And this is again something not a lot of people talk about or know about, And like when parents have a fresh baby, like that is such an experience that sometimes they may not, unless they're prepared beforehand, they may not have the mental fortitude to be like, look, we need to really see what's best for the kid, because in their minds they want to do what's best for the kid, but if they're not informed or aware that this is a possibility, you know what I'm saying, like it might not be the best thing for the child in the long term.
And you can tell that this is an issue still because of all these gender reveal parties. Literally, it's a lot of cishet couples who are they're getting pregnant, and right when their doctor does a whole ultrasound,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, your baby's gonna be a female or it's gonna be a male. And then, so what is so bad about these parties is that even if your doctor says, okay, you're gonna have a female, you're gonna have a daughter, that's what they will say.
Again, conflating the sex and gender thing. Yeah,
they'll have a party where it'll be revealed that it's like, oh, you're having a girl. So just because your child has female genitalia, you're already assuming that it's going to identify as a woman.
Right. And even the most stereotypical version of that, you know what I mean? Like,
and then you don't even know if the genitalia that's seen is one of the forms of intersex genitalia.
Right. It's like the most basic.
And then what happens whenever you birth the baby and it falls in the intersex realm, or if it's not intersex,
right,
but then your child feels like the opposite gender.
Right. They feel dysphoric of any kind, like, so yeah, that is the thing. I remember recently the guy who did the Fire Festival, apparently he had a gender reveal party where they did it with lasagna.
Oh, I think I heard about that.
That's gross.
I've seen so many different types, cakes, and what's even, oh my God, this is what's worse too. It's just blue and pink. So pink is,
oh my God, it's a
female.
girl.
Yeah, it's a girl. Blue is a boy. And so it'll be cakes where they like slice open the cake and the inside is pink or blue.
I mean, like the idea of having a party to celebrate your birth of your child, that's cool, right? I get it.
Maybe celebrate that you're having a healthy pregnancy versus being excited for a certain gender. And also you see a lot of disappointment within the couples of whenever they find out, because they don't know. Sometimes they don't know what the ultrasound results are. It's like the people hosting the party. And so when they see the color, whether it's pink or blue, you really tell what they actually wanted.
Right. And there's also the element of like, I don't want to get like super political or anything, but like, you know how historically male children have been prized over female children for like inheritance or like status or whatever. Like that's so whack. And that like is such a small remnant of that. And that's just a small thing. But I don't know, gender reveal parties to me have always been kind of strange, because I'm like, you're celebrating something, but you're not celebrating the kid. Like, I get it, a baby shower, right? Just have a second baby shower. You know what I mean? Like baby shower number 2.
Or just not. I mean, just get baby supplies. You can still have like a pregnancy party where like, oh, you're pregnant, and just get, supplies that you're going to need to take care of the baby, and just keep it gender neutral. I mean, I think that's fine.
Yeah. And also, like, again, if people are not aware of these kinds of things, it's really easy to just have beliefs that don't have that much substance. Like, I know this information is new and it needs to have more and more weight, but the fact that there's information that is now updating the already existing information, I feel like it's the parents' responsibility to be up to date on, what medical not medical information, what I'm trying to say, like what the current biology is, what the current medical information says on both sides. You know what I mean? Like it's really important for parents or potential parents or wannabe parents, even just everybody should be aware of the new information. You know what I mean?
I understand wanting to assign a gender to the sex, like in keeping it binary. I understand why people do that. So if your child is born with female genitalia and you want to identify them as your daughter as a girl, I think that's okay until your child grows up and has more of an understanding of their identity. Right. And then just be open for that to change or not change. But I think, I don't know, just kind of sticking to, okay, this is it and that is all, and then not allowing your child to really express themselves or choose for themselves. Because a lot of the times people are going to choose regardless. Like, it's whatever is natural for them. And so if they realize they are not what they were assigned, and if you are raising them in a strict way, like there's only this binary and you can't change and there's nothing in between, they're gonna grow up stressed, frustrated, upset, confused. So I'm still on the team of, okay, assign a gender if that makes you feel more comfortable for like ease of communication with people. Like, because I know there's people on like the gender X team where it's like, just don't put any gender. But if you are going to, still allow your child to choose when they are aware.
Right. And I think a lot of parents who or not parents, I'm sorry, a lot of critics of the whole gender X or gender neutral raising of children, they do have a point in that, like, your child is not going to be fully aware of themselves as they're growing up. So I get that, right? But I think where their argument falls apart is that they try to enforce these sort of patterns onto their children.
And gender norms.
Right. They try to enforce those things instead of, like, I would be okay with the argument if, like you were saying, it's like, hey, just do it for ease of communication for the kid and then, have these communications later.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And even then you can say, okay, well, you were born with this genitalia and this gender is often aligned. This gender is aligned with your genitalia, and just explain alignment, explain gender and sex.
Yeah, still have those conversations.
Yeah, have the conversations of there's people who are in between and people who choose opposite. And I understand that people have that fear that if you talk about these things, that then your child is just going to change. But in the end, the person, if it's really truly them, it's gonna, they know what to choose.
Yeah. And also, like, I understand that argument to the extent of, okay, well, let's hold off because they may not be fully aware or fully, they may not have their full mental faculty or whatever, because they're kids. I get it. They're children. They're growing. But at the same time, those are the same people who don't have these conversations about sex, about gender, about, gender norms. Like, they're not doing that.
And if you want to wait to have those conversations whenever you think is more appropriate for your child, I still think during the time before that, don't put gender norms on them.
Right.
Like, let them be human. Let them learn all kinds of skills, all aspects of life. Because if you're like, oh no, we're open, but you're still going to force them to wear pink and you're still going to force them to play with Barbie dolls, you're enforcing the gender norms. You're enforcing the binary.
And also listening to your children is super important, because children are very aware that they're trying to grow into themselves, even if they're not aware that that's consciously what they're doing. Because as a kid, you're always self-absorbed. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to figure out what you are as a human being. And like, when it comes to the time where you start developing a sense of identity, like, I feel like these conversations should happen. And if you don't want to have them before, I get that. But the critics of the whole, like, let's have kids choose what their own thing is, I feel like that argument falls kind of flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the key thing here is focus on healthy pregnancies, focus on communication and education of sex and gender. And also, it's not just about teaching your child, it's also teaching yourself and your partner. Like, the whole family needs to be involved, even your own parents or your guardians and your other family members and your friends. Everybody needs to be on board on the education of these things, because
100%.
No matter how open or woke you are as a parent or as a family, you also need to make sure that your family is safe with other family members, with other friends, the people who are in your life.
Because it really does take a village, so like, you want to make sure that if you are even somewhat learning about all the new information, you also have a responsibility for whoever's going to be interacting with that child, be in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, broadly speaking, there are 3 general categories for assigned sex at birth. Those which are determined at birth are male, female, intersex, and other. So intersex kind of encompasses the other, because intersex captures that range between male and female, and also beyond, because sometimes there are babies born with multiple sex markers like genitalia. That still falls under intersex, but that's also beyond male and female. And so those are generally, like, super broadly speaking, the 3 categories. And also, there is a statistic that said 1 in every 1,500 births will be an intersex child. So 1 in every 1,500, that's some high school graduations. Like, if you like, that is some high school classes, like 1 person in 1,500. You know what I mean?
Yeah, honestly, I think, was it our senior class? Did we have that amount of people or more?
I think we had like something like 2K, something like that. I don't know. We had a large class. So like 1 in 1,500, somebody at school, there's a chance that they were an intersex person. Yeah. But like, because of this erasure, sometimes even the kids don't know.
Yeah, because, things are done to them, before they're aware.
Right.
Things are, quote unquote, corrected. In that sense.
I believe the term is actually corrective surgery. So like, that's wild. Hope you're enjoying this episode. If you'd like to hear us ramble about another topic, head over to our Instagram and Twitter to suggest something or ask us a question. Subscribe and follow us on all our platforms to stay updated. Links will be in the description, and let's get back to the podcast. Anyway, so we talked about binary, we talked about assigned sex at birth.
Yes.
Now, we're going to move on to sexuality and attraction, like romantic attraction, right? So these fall under the category of attraction. There is physical, like sexual attraction, and then emotional attraction, like what you're romantically attracted to. And so those can overlap, and sometimes they don't. So they are distinct attractions, but we're in the attraction segment of it. So we talked about binary, talked about assigned sex at birth, which is like, hard stuff dealing with individuals and their bodies. Now we're going to talk about relationships and attraction.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said, sexual and romantic attractions can and often do go together, but there are still differences. So the main difference is that for a lot of people, these things can be fluid and fall on a spectrum. But again, not everybody is always wavering. Not everybody's always fixed. So if you weren't attracted to someone or a group of people before and you may feel differently now, that's okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Like, things grow and change over time. Like, nothing in life is 100% fixed and solid and stable. Like, even the states of matter or whatever, like solids, those molecules are vibrating. Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not something that's just 100% solid. So it's okay. And a lot of people, what am I trying to say? A lot of people don't change. You know what I mean? Like, some people are just like, oh, I'm this, and then they don't change. Yeah. And that's totally fine.
Yeah, some people are, when they're taught a certain way, then they kind of grow up that way, but it still aligns with how they feel. Right. That's fine too. But we should also allow space for people to explore. Right. And, decide, what I've been taught and what I grew up with is not what I am. And even if they chose a certain way, let's say 20 years down the line, that changes, that is also fine.
Right. Like, the discrimination of people who want to explore, or maybe who don't know, or who just want to learn, or, whether it's learn about themselves or others respectfully, that whole discrimination is whack. Like, no. Yeah. We don't do that. That's like, why are you trying to tell people how to live their life? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Totally agree.
So the main things we're going to talk about is attraction. Sexual attraction is what you are attracted to physically. So who you want to have sex with, who you want to be intimate with, make love, all those things. And when we talk about sex broadly, like the activity, we're including like physical intimacy, intercourse, all of that, like sexual activity. So that's that. Now, romantic attraction is who you are attracted to emotionally. Like, what kinds of people are you able to develop feelings for that are sustainable? Okay. You know what I mean? Right. So romantic relationships and some commonly labeled sexualities and some attractions as well. So we're going to go sexualities then attractions. There are, and I want to hear all y'all's pride comments. There are straight people. There's straight pride. I'm kidding. Straight pride is just like, existing. No, straight pride is just existing as a straight person. Like,
yeah, that's technically not under LGBTQ plus though.
Yes, but it is a form of sexuality. Straight people, heterosexual people are attracted to people of the opposite sex or gender, essentially. So if you're a male identifying, man, whatever, you are attracted to women, females, whatever. So, and vice versa as well. Okay, so that is straightness. Straightness is kind of the default in our society, like you were saying.
The society is heteronormative, which means heterosexuality is the norm.
Right. It is pushed as, okay, this is the base level, what we're going to go from.
Yes. Which is not okay. Honestly, the world is so much more than that, and forcing that standard excludes and erases a lot of people.
It does. And again, no bashing straight people. Y'all are straight, cool. Just don't do the opposite and bash non-straight people. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. All right. Now, next is gay, lesbian, homosexual. So when you're attracted to people of the same sex or gender. So male man attracted to male men. Same thing. Female woman attracted to female women. All that. So same sex attraction. So those are gay people, lesbian people, all of that.
Yeah. And I do know that like some people prefer just to be called gay, even if they are, because I know gay is associated with men. Right. But people still use that interchangeably even for women, or they just go by homosexual. Right. And it really depends on the person.
I saw a meme recently where it was like a little cat in a bowl, and it was like, all of the things that you can be as part of the LGBT movement, and you're just sitting here, and then the bowl was just like, I'm gay. Like,
yeah, because what it's saying is like, gayness is like, it's a small little bowl, but like there's so much else and so many other things on the spectrum, and
like it's a catch-all. We call it gay pride, like, you know.
yeah, but it's so much more.
Yeah, so that is a catch-all kind of term, but yes, homosexual attraction is a thing. So that's it. Number which one was that? No, 1, 2, 3. Okay, 3, bisexual. Now bi Latin root means two, right? So this is also where we're going to get into more variances, but bisexual means you are attracted to people of both sex genders. And this can encompass other intersections as well. So this means as a singular person, you can be attracted to men and women, male, female, you know, all of that. So that is bisexual, right?
Okay.
Cool. Now, the other intersections we're going to talk about. Here's where sometimes people can get a little, oh my God, there's so much going on. Don't worry. These are definitions.
This is when the cisheads are really uncomfortable and they start sweating and they're just like, y'all are just making this up.
No.
And if you feel like this, just listen. Honestly, these things exist whether or not you've heard about it, and you may feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And I'm also talking to the cisheads who are listening. If you feel uncomfortable, it's probably because this is not in your radar. This is not in your life. You don't live this experience. So it may feel like a lot, but if you just step back and listen to people, humanize these terms. These are actual situations for people.
Yeah, these are how people feel. And also, like, think about it like this. You live your whole life being exposed to straightness.
Yeah.
So, like, everybody knows what you are.
And no one ever questions your straightness.
Right.
Now, for the queer folk out there, you know what we're talking about. And you're like, okay, can we get beyond the main three, please?
Yes. And also, if you are a queer person who is kind of trying to learn, what's up? You know, it's all good.
Yeah, it's all good.
So, yes, I believe we've covered all the bases. All right. So, we had straight, gay, bisexual. Those are the three most commonly well, what am I trying to say?
Most commonly heard, talked about.
Thank you. I was trying to say known and heard at the same time. Anyway.
It happens.
Okay, so next we have pansexual. So pan does not mean like skillet, right?
Yeah, let's just make that clear.
Yes. There are memes. There's so many memes.
So many.
But pan, the Latin root of that comes to all. So this means people are attracted to people regardless of sex or gender. So this means you can have sexual attraction to anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody. Like one very famous example, Deadpool in the comics. Pansexual.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Pan pride. I didn't know this until very recently either. And I was like, oh, that's...
Like the character or the actor?
I believe the character.
Okay.
I don't know about Ryan Reynolds. I don't know.
Okay, cool. No, that's still cool.
I didn't know that. I was like, oh, that's actually a really interesting representation. Cause
a lot of people are pan, and I think a lot more people are realizing that that's how they actually feel because they have the language now. Because I know before a lot of people would use the term bisexual to encompass that, and some people still do.
Right.
And if you're wondering what our intersections are in the LGBTQ plus community, we're going to get into that, but let's continue with some sexualities.
Yes, thank you. So pansexual means all, right? You're attracted to everything and anything that is human. And, you know, Deadpool is a comic book character, so aliens and all the other stuff, like whatever, right?
Free game.
But no minors. That's not okay.
True.
No.
Yes.
That is not a
never
thing in the
minors.
LGBT. That's no.
Never minors, always consensual. So if you can consent, that's what it is.
100% disclaimer. Sorry, I just had to put that out because sometimes people will demonize these sexualities. I'm just saying.
Yes, and some people try to add a certain.
We're not gonna go.
We're not gonna
there.
go there. We're not giving that space.
There.
If you know,
no.
you know. Okay, next.
All right. So polysexual. This does not mean you're attracted to people named Polly.
Really? I thought. Okay.
No, okay. Polysexual means you can be attracted to many different kinds of sexes and genders, but not all of them. So when you were saying bisexual earlier, this is kind of what it means, right? So you can fall under any one of these intersections and they're all equally valid. Determining which one you feel most comfortable identifying with can be a choice at different points in time.
Yeah.
So some people may feel bisexual, they may feel poly, they may feel pan, but they all kind of encompass similar things, just slight variations.
Yeah, I think it's
So,
like
yeah.
more specific.
Right.
It's like a more specific way, and sometimes people, like I mentioned earlier, will use bisexual but feel the other two. And I guess if you want to be more specific, you're gonna choose, you know, a sub of the
Right.
umbrella.
And there's so many more, but those are the main ones. And then there's also, we cannot forget, asexual people.
Yes.
So asexual people are not sexually attracted to anyone. So
Mm-hmm.
now we're going to get into romantic attraction. So we went
Okay.
through straight, gay, bi, pan, poly, asexual. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the main sexualities that most people are aware of. Now, we're going to start with asexual and aromantic. These are not always paired together.
True.
But aromantic means you are not romantically invested in other people. So this means you can be sexually interested in other people. You can create close friendships, but romantic attraction is not something that happens for you.
Okay, so like, let's say you can be homosexual,
Right.
but you can be aromantic.
Yes. And also aromantic, when it comes to romantic attractions, people can minimize them, but no, this is just as equal as sexuality.
Yes, it is.
Like, especially when you think about aromantic people, like, oh, well, you're just a hoe. No, that's not the case. It's that I am not romantically attracted to people. So, like, do not minimize this. That we're not here for that. Aromantic people and asexual people are both equally valid under the LGBT thing. Just stop with that.
And there's also biromantic.
True. There's biromantic, demisexual, so people who are interested in sex but not all the time.
It's
like,
more, yeah, like demisexual is you're not interested in sexual relations with someone unless there's a bond,
right,
like a connection with that person.
Yeah, and there's again so many variations on that. So aromantic, biromantic, panromantic, you know, all of these different attraction styles, right?
Yeah.
So you can be homoromantic, but you know, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's all what you need for yourself. And I know this can seem a lot, and trust me, when I'm part of the LGBT community, but before I was accepting of that for myself, this seemed like a lot too when I was educating myself on these things, because I didn't grow up knowing these terms. This was not ever talked about. Not even heterosexuality was talked about in my household. Barely even the word sex. So I had a lot to learn, and it is overwhelming. But trust me, if while you're learning this, maybe see who around you in your community falls under these terms, or maybe someone online, see an interview, humanize these terms, because you'll really see that this is in existence and this is valid.
Right. And also know that regardless of whether you agree with something or not, people are going to have their lived experiences. So if you need to take a break from learning things and you need to like sit with something and like really digest it, that's okay. But again, bringing it back to the start of the episode, we're talking about Marsha P. Johnson. We're talking about Black trans women. You can take time if you need to as a straight person to learn more, but that doesn't mean that people are not affected by this in the daily. So
yes, and if you're a cis het person or just a cisgender person, which we're going to get into later, if anything of this is too much, just remember and keep in mind that you don't live this experience, so it's very easy for you to just not know about it or not deal with it. But for people who are in these intersections, this is their life. This is not something they can just take a break from. Like, you can take a break from like learning, of course, but just know that there is a privilege, and what am I trying to say, there is like a calm to knowing what you are, having that be broadly accepted. There's like, if you're cis het, like if you're heterosexual, it's already accepted. You don't have to challenge anything. But for people who aren't that, they have to challenge it. So take your breaks as needed, but make sure that you are active in learning, because you're bound to meet somebody who is an LGBT plus.
Right. And that will help you be respectful. You know what I mean?
And it could be your own children. It could be your own family members that haven't came out yet. It could be your friends, your boss, your workers. Like,
somebody in the family history that you didn't know about.
Exactly. It could be anybody. And so it's really ignorant to ignore this even when you know what you are.
Yeah. So going back to that, actually, sexuality was commonly referred to and treated as a binary in a lot of Eurocentric worldviews. So sexuality and gender were often conflated and also placed within a binary system in Eurocentric worldviews. But there are communities around the world with rich and storied histories of people who exist beyond the binary, and also different versions of sex markers within other communities. Now, that's not to say that historically the world has been unproblematic. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
the world has not been friendly to queer people, to women, to children, even to men. Let's just be honest. The world has not been kind in general.
yes. There's been a lot of violence towards people's gender, sexuality. There's been a lot of oppression associated with those kind of things. And then when you add the intersection of, race and stuff, it gets messy. But just take your time in picking little parts of it and it'll all come together.
Yeah. And again, it's like if we're going to talk about the whole digital thing, like people becoming avatars, customize it as much as you want. Why do you want a plain old basic old little bit mode? Like, what true. Why are you afraid of all these options? Like, you don't have to choose them, but you just get the update. You know what I mean?
I know. I noticed there's been this resurgence of people who are trying to control avatars in games. They're like, why does it have to be why does there have to be a trans character avatar? Why does there have to be this and that? And it's like, because there's people who are also not like you. So if you're comfortable with what's already there, then just stick with that. But the other options shouldn't bother you.
Well, also sometimes it's because those characters are bomb as fuck and they're just like, I don't want to play it.
Yeah, they're so upset as soon as they find out the character is trans or if they're gay or something. They're just like, wait, what? Because then that's where the insecurity comes. When if someone or an avatar you're going to play in a game, you find out that there's something that you may not approve of, which is really ridiculous. Then if your attitude changes towards that person or that avatar, that says a lot about your insecurities of your own identity, your own sexuality.
Louder
and so
for
on.
The back, please.
Other people's identities and sexualities should not bother you ever.
Right. And also, if you think about like avatars as a form of escapism, like, everybody's trying to escape the bullshit around them, man. Like, let people escape.
That's true. Like that Black Mirror episode, episode 1. Yeah, that said a lot about men who lived the life of cis het men, and they realized they were on all kinds of spectrums.
Yeah. Now I will say the writing on that episode, there's a lot to break into. I might even do a whole thing on my own YouTube story style. Anyway.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. So and okay, so a lot of current and ongoing studies are disproving the binary, because a lot of times people will try to force you into a box, and this goes for even non-LGBT people. Like, people love boxes. I don't get it. Anyway, those are, so far we've covered assigned sex at birth, right? We've covered binary. We've covered different kinds of attractions, and now we're gonna get into the thing that everybody's talking about lately: gender.
Head over to the next episode for part 2 of this topic, where we discuss gender and expression, the LGBTQ plus community here in Japan, and a personal Q&A about us. Thanks for listening to the Abnormal Japan podcast. Stay tuned for future content by following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Support us by leaving us a review, sharing us on your socials, or even joining the Abnormy community on Patreon. Bye!